Hello, Craig Jarrow here from Time Management Ninja, and I'm happy to have as my guest today Robert Smith. Robert Smith has been a coach and mentor in the book industry to Andy Andrews for over 30 years, and today we're here to talk about his new book, 20,000 Days and Counting. Welcome, Robert. How you doing?
Craig, I am outstanding, and I assure you that's not just my own personal opinion.
That's wonderful. I'm doing outstanding as well.
Good.
So tell me about your new book, 20,000 Days and Counting. I've just finished it, read it here on my Kindle, and tell me how it's going. How long has it been out?
Well, it came out January 1st, so just a few months, and I believe it's already in its third printing. And I just found out moments ago from our publisher that it will be going into Japanese. So that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. That is third printing already. Do you speak Japanese, by the way?
I do not.
Okay.
I'm not even sure if I know any people from Japan.
Yeah. I do not. Okay, well, let's talk about it. I gave your book a read. I really enjoyed it. We'll definitely be recommending it to my readers. But let's talk about 20,000 Days and Counting.
Okay.
Where did the concept come from? What does 20,000 days mean? And tell me about the concept.
Yes. Craig, it actually came about through an app on my iPhone. In other words, when I got the iPhone a few years ago, some of the guys in my office simply were sharing with me how to download these different apps. And one of them was a countdown calendar.
Yes.
And I did this, and what you do with it, you've probably seen this, where you put in Christmas, or it tells you how many days till Christmas. It tells you for your next birthday or anniversary or whatever. What I wanted to know was, does it work backwards? So I put in my birth date, 5/5/55, and up popped the number of days I had been alive at that day, which was around 19,930 days.
Wow.
And I'd never seen my life in days. You always think in years or decades. And I thought then, I'm going to do something special. I didn't know what, but go away and celebrate on my next big number, which was 20,000 days.
That's awesome. And you're right. We do always think about it in terms of years, right? X number of years. But thinking of days and thinking of that count up is kind of a unique thing, right?
Yes.
Now, what did you do? What did you do around your 20,000th
Well, that day, it happened to be...
celebration?
Yeah, it happened to be a Friday, and I simply packed my bags, just an overnight thing, and I literally left my house so uncharacteristic of me, not knowing where I was going or how far I was going. And I started driving, and I found one of the leading hotels of the world. That is literally a brand name. They are usually small boutique hotels all over the world. And I stopped at one, checked in. I remember sitting down at the desk in the room and thinking, now what am I supposed to be doing? And I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude that I had been alive that long.
Yes.
And I simply sat down and started writing an email to Andy and Polly Andrews. As you mentioned, the guy that I've been managing for 33 years now.
Right.
And I just told them kind of why I was there, about my 20,000 day experience. And I mentioned several principles out of Scripture that I thought were relevant to time and how it applies to our lives.
Yes.
I sent that email to them, and then I immediately thought of somebody else I was very grateful for. And Craig, over the next 18 hours, I ended up doing that to 48 of my friends.
Wow.
I just kept feeling that sense, and each of them received a personal email. And that's actually, that email is in chapter 2 of the book.
Yes. I like that message that you just gave, too. I mean, you know, it's a milestone to say that I've reached 20,000 days, but that gratitude, the word you used there was gratitude.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times we lose sight of the gratitude of what we are allowed to do each day, right?
Absolutely. Because it is a gift. I mean, there's no guarantee you are going to make it through the night or in tomorrow morning.
Right.
And we all know somebody that didn't at some point in their life.
Yes.
And you remember in the book, I talk about a guy in my 9th grade. This is where this concept kind of started of not knowing how long your life is going to be. Because Paul Kartlick, I had known him since 2nd grade. Every day through school, we were in the same class and all. And we were playing basketball in gym that day. And literally, he started chasing the ball that was about to go out of bounds. And he tripped and fell and hit his head so hard, he literally died right there.
Wow,
I'd never seen anybody die. Never experienced one of my friends, a close friend, dying. And it suddenly started playing on my mind, wow, I'm literally one step away from meeting my maker. Now, that did not scare me. It just kind of jolted me. Live this moment today and be very extremely grateful.
I think it's those experiences, those sometimes tragic events that wake us up to what we have every day. And yes, there may not be another tomorrow. I talk a lot about time management and productivity, and one of the things I always talk about is you can't get more time, and one of the magical things about life is you don't know how much more you have.
That's right.
I could have another 20,000 days, or I could have another 3 days.
That's right.
So you talk about that in your book, and I want to bring that up real quick. You talk about living for the day and being gracious and that gratitude that you mentioned, but you also talk about that the best way to live. And I want to pull one of your quotes out here. You said that you can't fully live until you've confronted death.
Right.
So that sounds a little morbid, but how do you mean that?
Yeah, it's not meant to be at all. It's actually meant to be energetic, because what my attorney recently told me that about 65% of Americans die without a will. Does that mean 65% don't think they're going to die? Do they not think about it at all? I mean, there are some legal and what I would say some nice gestures for those that remain in your family that it is helpful to them to take care of these legal things, just a living will or whatever. So the idea is, once you know this is a temporary thing, there's a limit. That's why when we're in school, Craig, the teacher on your term paper gave you a deadline. In life, sometimes we don't realize there's a deadline. Yeah. It's unknown. We aren't going to be told it, but yet you've got to act like today might be your only day. It suddenly ramps up how you treat those around you, your spouse, your kids, your friends. If it's the last time you're going to see them, it's totally different. They are not aggravating you as much as they could. You're just much more grateful and patient with everybody around you.
It really puts things in perspective.
Absolutely.
It makes those things that may seem, like they're mountains, maybe they're really not. When you think of the grand scheme of things, they may just be molehills.
And most of life is not a mountain.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I checked. I'm only at 14,966 days, so I've got a little bit of time before. Well, maybe I don't, but I have a little. I have a little bit of time before I reach your 20,000 day goal there. So I have a little bit of time to figure out what I'm going to do there. But let's talk about some things there. So talk about living. Talk about how do we choose to live in a conscious manner. I liked a lot of what you talked about in the book around motivation. And you actually said you don't believe in, what did you say? You said you don't believe in motivation.
Yeah, motivation is a myth.
Right, that's what you said.
It's a misnomer. If you're waiting to be motivated, or you're in a position to try to motivate somebody, that's crazy thinking.
Right.
The father of our modern day psychology, William James, said, "We do not sing because we're happy. We are happy because we sing."
Right.
You see the difference?
Yes.
You don't have to say, "Oh, I just can't sing because I'm not happy." No, you start humming, start singing, even "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." Right. By the time you do the chorus, you are going to be feeling different. Now, my negative thinking friends don't want to admit that this works, but it does.
Yes.
Every single time.
I like how you turn that around, too, that motivation piece. You said in your book, increase your productivity and the motivation will follow. That's kind of the reverse of what everybody likes to say. They like to say, well, I can't get anything done because I can't get motivated.
Yes.
You got to get yourself in motion.
Last weekend, let's say my closet needs to be redone, as most closets need to be. But you know what, Craig? I'm happy to report to you that I've got the top drawer on the left very clean. I just moved on one drawer, and I felt so excited that I know I will get more done just doing one drawer at a time.
Yes, absolutely. And when I have a big project like that, I'm not going to tell you about my closet right now, but no, I'll dedicate maybe 10 minutes a day.
Yes.
And I'll eat that elephant 10 minutes a day. And I've written about that in the past, but I'll go 10 minutes today, and then tomorrow, and then before you know it, you end up doing more than 10 minutes because you get that motivation. You're like, I want to get this done, or I want to make more progress. So yeah, I think that's great. But I really love that insight there about increase your productivity and then the motivation will follow. That's powerful.
And Craig, another thing, I know when I was in high school, again, I had this really cool teacher that walked around during class one day, and he had assigned all of us about a month earlier a term paper to do. And you had 6, 7 weeks to do it in. And he walked around and he says, Robert, how are you doing on your term paper? And I said, I haven't started yet. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, Robert, starting is half finished. Now, I never forgot that. That goes right into what you were saying. Just take 10 minutes. Just get going. Yeah. You start doing the research. If you've got a book project, just take the next 15 minutes and write down 10 different potential titles for your book, or come up with the chapter titles for 10 chapters, or even write a synopsis of your book in the next 15 minutes. You will be shocked at how that 15 minutes might turn into 45 or an hour and a half.
Right.
Yes.
And you wrote about this last week, actually. You did a guest post on Time Management Ninja. I thank you for that. And you talked about the power of those 15-minute chunks of time. And
yes.
Another great example that you wrote about in your book there was how we tend to overestimate what we can do in, say, 5 years, but we tend to totally underestimate what you can do in those small time frames, say 15 minutes.
Absolutely. Every single time, this works incredibly. Now, moms and dads with children know the value of minutes at a time, because sometimes that's all they have at a time.
Yes.
So it's amazing, and moms are masters at this multitasking type of thing. And I know that each of us can do this, at least focus on one of these tasks in short bursts of time. And looking back at the end of the day, you'll be shocked at really how much you got done that might have been stalemated before then.
Yes. And this is actually in your guest post, but I love you gave an example of small amounts of time, and people tend to let that in-between time go, but the 3-minute example you gave, I may use that.
Okay, do it.
That you don't think 3 minutes is a long amount of time, jump rope for 3 minutes. I'm going to challenge the next person who tells me that they can't get anything done in 3 minutes to try that.
It's insane. It's amazing what you can't do in 3 minutes.
Right.
I mean, you think it's easy, or you think, well, sure, I can do that. No, you cannot. I don't even care if you're in really great shape. Jump roping for 3 minutes is intense.
Yes. Well, let's talk about living intentionally. Let's talk about choices and where we can go in life. Later in the book, you started talking about again those opening yourself up to those choices. And let's talk a little bit about another passage in the book. You talked about you really only have 2 choices in life.
Absolutely. Most people become paralyzed, or a lot of people do, because they don't know what to do. Right. They become immobilized with, quote, too many choices.
Yes.
In reality, Craig, we only have 2. When the phone rings, you can say, yes, I'm going to answer it, or no, I'm not. The doorbell rings, yes, I'm going to answer it, or no, you are not. Remember, it's an invitation. Most of life is like that. You are invited to do things, and you have the opportunity and the power and the control to either say yes to this or no. In a gracious way, of course. You thank people for thinking of you, for asking, but I'm going to have to pass due to other commitments or whatever. Within your own mind, don't make this chemistry. Don't make it so hard. It's either turn the water on or turn it off. Wash your hands or don't. It's so simple, and you will be shocked if you make it this simple of, again, how much more you will do.
I agree. It's not rocket science. It's yes or no, and it's about making those choices. Too
Absolutely.
often, we don't make the choice. We either let life make that choice for us, or we decline to make the choice, or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, in taking action, a lot of people get paralyzed by another fear, which is the fear of rejection. And you talked about some of your personal experiences, growing up and through your career and stuff, about how you overcame rejection.
Yes.
Well, as people, want to take your advice and move forward with it, let's talk about how they move past their fear of rejection.
First of all, I don't ever feel I'm rejected. So I got tickled recently in an interview. Somebody says, how do you feel when you fail so many times? And I'm thinking, I didn't know I was failing. I didn't know I failed. Because you see, when I was in college, for long 90 days, I worked with the Southwestern Publishing Company. They're a company that's like 150 years old. They're located here in Nashville, and they hire or involve college kids every summer, thousands of them, and they send them out to the rural areas and big cities anywhere in the country, and you literally sell books door to door. That's the hardest type of sales. That's really ramping up what you were calling rejection over and over and over again. And they just simply told me, Robert, if you'll share their books with 30 families a day, you will end up succeeding. And I thought, well, you're not going to get 30 yeses.
Right.
So I thought what I need to do is literally find 30 families a day that do not want my books. And so when I started out doing this, I was excited about everybody telling me no. Now, Craig, between me and you, never once did I share it 30 times in a row whereby some knucklehead said, yes, I'll take your books. So they broke that, and then I had to start again to try to find 30. Later on, and I was very successful, by the way, doing that, selling books that summer. I was actually in the top 10% of the entire company.
Wow.
Who knew you could fail your way to success? So when I started booking Andy Andrews as a comedian 30 years ago, I thought I will look for 30 colleges and universities a day that do not want to book a comedian. Literally had my legal pad written down, 1 to 30, and I would call a school and I literally would say, Mr. Director of Student Activities, you aren't interested in booking a comedian, are you? They would say, no, Robert, we are not. Thank you very much. I was excited. I won. Yes. I'd call the next school. Mrs. Director of Student Activities, you wouldn't be interested in booking a comedian, would you? No, we are not. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See how excited I was? Now, the third one I would call and I'd ask and they'd say, Robert, we actually had a meeting last week about a comedian. We might be interested. Then I would follow up. You wouldn't be interested in Andy Andrews, would you? Well, we might. See, that negative reverse selling actually caused more interest. And Andy Andrews, after 2 years of this, was voted Comedian of the Year 2 years in a row and Entertainer of the Year that second year also. He became, in other words, not once again, never once in 2 years, did I succeed in finding 30 schools in a row that did not want a comedian.
Yeah.
Craig, this principle can be used in anything in life. Whether you think you're a salesman or not, you are selling your kids, you're selling your coworkers, you're selling people about your faith or whatever your beliefs. In your case, you're selling people about managing time better. Right. Whatever it is, find 30 people that they don't want what you have, you can get rich.
No, I think that's wonderful advice, and I've got one more question for you about that. But no, and I think you can fail your way to success. I mean, you hear some of those great stories around, how many times, for example, Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. How many times he was rejected by authors before he got that published?
Yes.
Many of the most famous movies of all times. How many times they were passed on by studios before they were finally made into films and things like that.
Exactly.
For someone in my profession of writing a time management blog, and I get questions all the time from bloggers asking me, well, how did you get to the level of audience that you had? I just kept going. And I remember...
That's like you've been doing it for 4 years.
I've been doing it for 4 years now and I remember the early days, I was happy, no joke, I was happy if 10, 20, 30 people read my blog in a day, I was happy.
That's awesome.
And I'm sure half of those were my mom.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to close with one question that kind of wraps this up, and it maybe isn't exactly in your book, but I love your attitude today. Tell us about positive attitude and how it relates to 20,000 days, because I think intentional living is all about your attitude, right? It's about choices, but it's about your attitude.
Absolutely. A proper attitude, but beyond, I think even if you think you have a negative attitude, if you put positive action and activity, if you really do try to jump rope, if you really do act happy, if you really do look in the mirror and smile and practice smiling, then amazing things happen. Number one, people wonder, what's going on with you? Why are you so happy? Somebody once asked me, are you always this happy? The answer is, I always act this happy. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
Now, I really do feel this happy when you act this way. No matter what's happened the day before, what activities, I know they're momentary. I know this 15 minutes I can handle it. I know that all my needs are being met no matter what circumstances. It's like God promised us a roof, shelter, food, air, water. I've got all these essentials for life right now. All other things are a bonus. That's the things that we just say, wow, look what we get to do. And I know I can live through this day. So that's what I concentrate on. Mm-hmm. And that's what keeps the excitement and the fuel, I think, to keep it going in a positive way.
I think that's an outstanding outlook. And I think it's contagious. And you've probably heard that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Robert. This has been a great chat, and I'll tell you that I really enjoyed your book, 20,000 Days and Counting. I'm definitely going to recommend it to the Time Management Ninja readers. I'll put a link in this post so they can get to your book. Any final words you want to impart?
I want to say that anybody can figure out how many days they've been alive by going to therobertd.com, and it's got that little calculator. You just type in your birthday, and you'll be shocked at what you get. For free, you can get the battle-tested branding, a great ebook. It's free. That does not just apply to anybody that wants to be an author or entertainer or speaker, but it really does apply to anybody in life.
Well, great. And I absolutely will refer people to your website there as well, so
Excellent.
They can get to that through the link below as well.
And Craig, thank you for all you're doing and for stepping up and being outstanding in what you are doing. You've got one of the smoothest websites I've ever been to. So thank you, and your mother. Tell her I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Robert. I'm very gracious for that. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on the show.
All right. See ya.
See you soon.